I'm Chris O'Connor. I am the owner of the Deems company, and I brought this technology, the Deems device, into the world from my experiences working in the secret space program. Now, the Deems device, it's a magnetic device. There's no electronics within it whatsoever. It's a series of magnets, 14 total, with this large ring magnet on the top. And what this does is it helps relieve pain and helps relieve inflammation, and it helps regenerate tissue. It's basically a device that helps and allows and supports our body to heal itself. And we used something similar to this while I was off planet. And that it wasn't called the Deems device then, but now I call it the Deems because I have a Divine Evolution podcast, and so I named it after that. So it's the Divine Evolution Electromagnetic Micro Singularity Device. So that's Deems. And so with this device in the secret space program, we used it. I used it quite a bit, and for the most part, it was used for things that we don't want to use now, like for memory and soul transference and memory erasing and stuff like that. This one can never do that. It's not built that way. But in all high technology and the highest civilizations, the oldest races, out in the universe, all use magnets and crystals for a number of things, for healing, and actually for propulsions for ships, intergalactic ships. So all technology is really based on crystals and magnets. So I decided to bring this into the world, and bring it to humanity. And it was part of my agreement because, I did 3 20 and back programs. And for me, while I was negotiating my 3rd term, part of what I wanted to do was bring the Deems device to humanity. So they agreed. But I think they agreed because they didn't think I would remember, but I do. So it's been great. It's been quite wonderful. And we have over 1,500 of them all around the world, and people are doing amazing things with it. And it's just something that it does things that I never even conceived of. It doesn't just relieve people's pain, and it's really, really good with like joint pain, arthritis, that type of pain. It is just amazing. But it also does really good work on the chakra system, the meridians of the body. And when you can balance those, then the body can bring in more energy into the body and then heal itself. And that's the natural process. We're not healing the way that we should because we're not connected to the earth in the way that we used to be. And, like animals, they heal well, and they live a more rough life, and they can manage that because they're connected to the earth. We're not running around barefoot anymore. We're living in buildings. So this device, it's the same energy. It's a magnetic energy because these are very powerful magnets. But then also because if you take this ring off, it wants to rest in this direction. That's how it naturally wants to rest. But when you take a magnet and you force it against its the way it wants to rest, it creates piezoelectric energy. It's the same energy that our pineal gland in our brain creates with calcite crystals. It does compression and creates piezoelectric energy. And that energy is throughout our nervous system. So this device basically creates the same energy so that our nervous system can use the energy that it creates to kind of get remove inflammation and relieve pain. And for example, if you were to cut your skin, then if you were to open, then the electrical signals coming through the nervous system actually dissipates. So there's no pool energy. But when you have like an injury, internal injury, or you have anything that's wrong within the nervous system of the body, then that energy pools because there's no way for it to get out and dissipate into the atmosphere. So what happens is that energy creates a blockage in the nervous system, and then that blockage creates inflammation, and that inflammation creates pain. And the Deems device and that piezoelectric energy that it creates and the magnetic energy encourages the nerves to continue to shoot and fire. And so then the pain is relieved, the inflammation goes down, and the body can heal and regenerate itself more easily and more quickly. The device is actually, it's fashioned after two different ancient technologies. One of those technologies is the Ankh. And you can kind of see it sort of has an Ankh effect to it. And the shape of the Ankh, it creates then, a couple thousand years ago at least, it created a low electromagnetic field. And then they use that for pain relief as well. So I fashioned it after that because there's a mathematic, equation to the size. But then also it's fashioned after the Baghdad battery. And the Baghdad battery was a small clay pot found in, Baghdad. And within that pot was like a little ring, like here, about this size, of a tubing of copper. And within that tubing of copper was an iron rod. And then they would fill this whole little pot full of some sort of electrolyte, grape juice, vinegar, some sort of acidic thing. And then they would seal it. And then through the top of that would be created the same energy, piezoelectric type of energy and a magnetic energy, electromagnetic. And they would use that for both very dim light in dark spaces, but also they would place that whole pot right on a body part somewhere in the body, and that would help relieve pain, or they believed it would help heal them. So that it's fashioned after both of those because the basic size and shape of this device, it's a 1-inch copper tube, and then within it, if you imagine it being split down the middle, is 12 or 6 bar magnets this direction, a magnet this way, and then 6 more magnets this way for 13 magnets in the handle. And then this is the 14th, this ring magnet. Now the ring magnet is polarized in a way that when you create this, when you have, say if this is off, then what we have is a flow of magnetic energy this way, and so it keeps coming around in that shape and that fashion. But then you put the ring magnet on, and then this ring magnet is magnetized so that the north is this side and the south is this side. And so as the electricity or the magnetic field comes around, this magnet pushes it this way. So that creates a flow this way and then a flow this way, and that creates a small little vortex, like you held it like this, it'd be like a little tiny tornado. And at the tip of that tornado is a 0-point energy. And that 0-point energy is the energy that is healing energy. So, and that's the reason there's a little red dot on it. That little red dot shows you this is the side where the vortex is. So, and it's that vortex. So if you say you do have an injury, you want to do one of two things. First, what I recommend, it's not necessary, but I recommend that you just have the red dot facing away from you in this fashion. And then what that does is it draws energy out. So if you've injured yourself and there's pooled energy there, signals firing through the nervous system and they're pooled up there because of inflammation they can't get through, you want to just kind of pull it out. And then you flip it over, you can do that for 1-2 minutes. Then you just flip it over and you aim the little red dot on that same spot. And you can just kind of do it in circles, or you can just hold it there. You can touch yourself with it, that's fine. And you just hold it there, and you're putting that little, imagine that little vortex is penetrating my skin, that little vortex of energy. And what you're doing is you're creating like you're just flooding that tissue around that injury with extra energy so that it can heal itself. Then the inflammation, and it pushes along the signal to the nervous system and to the brain. So what it does is it helps the nervous system to reduce its inflammation. And once you reduce inflammation, then you can really, really heal, and you can, your pain is greatly reduced. I remember this device from being in service in a space program, and we would use it, and they were electronic. They would be chargeable. There's like a little port at the bottom. We would charge them, but they would like wirelessly connect to a computer so that you could program them. And you can program them to a frequency, the frequency of the individual that you're going to use. But in it being electronic, it forces energy into the body. And sometimes the body doesn't want to be forced to do something. And so I went fully magnetic and just use magnets basically because it's free energy. And that free energy is the energy that's all around us anyway. And so it just allows the body, it gives the body the opportunity to heal itself. So the body will choose what it wants to do with this device. It doesn't force anything to happen. So it can't heal in of itself. It's a tool to help your body heal itself. So that's what the Deems device is best used for. It's still a mystery as to why it is that magnetism is so positive and so good for the body to heal itself. It's still not fully understood, and I don't remember why that is exactly. But through the research of the National Institute of Health, they have, through quite a bit of research you can find on their website, you can find that they have done research, and they found that magnets, especially neodymium magnets, which all of these are, have a certain frequency, and they're very powerful. And for somehow, and I believe more on a spiritual level of the reason that the body is healing itself and why magnetism is good, because the scientific community who did the research can only go based on what they can measure as far as why things happen. And they haven't found exactly the cause of why that magnetism helps the body to heal, except for that it somehow stimulates the nervous system. And that's my belief as well, because there's like all of the ambient energy around us, and our body is supposed to be taking that in constantly. And then when there's an ample amount of it, then the nervous system can really do extra work. So when we're injured, we don't get enough of that electromagnetism and piezoelectric energy. So our body is continuing to struggle. And so we can't heal or relieve pain in the way we'd like to and reduce inflammation. A lot of people use the Deems in a lot of different ways, to be honest, in ways I wasn't even ever considering. Like myself and many people, I actually keep it with me either under my pillow at night. And so I'll sleep with it all night because it gives me much more restful sleep. Not exactly sure how that works, but it did work. I built this to relieve pain and inflammation. And people are finding that by sleeping with it, they get really good sleep. People are using it on their pets. Cats love this thing. I can't tell you how many photographs people sent to me of their cat just sleeping on the Deems device. They'll just walk over on it. They'll purr and rub on it. And dogs the same way, but they're not as sensitive as cats to this type of stuff. But people are using the Deems. When they first begin, I recommend like 10 or 15 minutes. If you have a pain somewhere in your body, you can just take it, red dot out, just to kind of pull a little bit of energy out for a minute or two. And then you just turn it over for 5 to 10 minutes and just observe your body. And I especially tell people when you first hold the Deems device, if you've never felt energy as far as the flow of energy, just hold it and then just observe your body for a moment and just kind of pay attention, to what you feel. And it's very subtle, but most people feel it, a tingling in their feet. And that's a really excellent sign, because what you're doing is your body is using this, and it's like pulling a lot of energy through your body, the ambient earth energy. And that's why they feel a little bit of a tingle. So that's a really good sign. And some people feel it really powerfully for the first week or two. And then a couple people have contacted me and said, it was amazing the first couple of weeks. I just felt this powerful energy. And then it started fading away. And now I don't feel anything. I'm like, actually, not feeling anything is ideal, because it means you've kind of come into balance. And as much energy as this can pull into your body, you're matching it. So you're not feeling that extra pull of energy that you're normally used to not feeling that. But then it's still doing its job. It never stops. They're magnets. They don't stop being magnets. So it doesn't stop creating this energy field, which can go for a few feet around you. And that's because our energy field does the same thing. Our energy field goes out from us about 9 feet. And anywhere within that 9 feet, if this Deems device is around, it's helping to draw that energy into your body. So I recommend using it for 5 to 10 minutes at the very beginning, after you've kind of begun to understand and feel energy. And then if you have pain or an injury, and just see if you can do it for 15 minutes to half an hour. If you feel a little bit jazzed, like you had a cup of coffee, you kind of have a little bit too much energy, so just set it down for a while until your system settles. And you can try that once or twice a day and work yourself up, and see if you can begin to have it next to your bed, and if it'll help you sleep. And just try different things, because everybody's body's different, and the Deems are kind of the same, and everybody has to either adjust to it, or they slowly do it, or maybe quickly. So I would use it for a few minutes a day to begin with, and just see how your body responds to it. My experience with this Deems has been absolutely amazing. I have met hundreds and hundreds of people and received so many emails and people that have just absolutely fallen in love with this device. One quick example, there's a holistic and Western medicine veterinarian in Los Angeles, and she uses it she owns the practice, and she uses it on all of her pets and all of her clients' pets. And so she's found out that, like an old dog, for example, she can use it on them. And then, especially, she says, with hip dysplasia, that dog will act like a puppy for like a week. She said it's just amazing how it works for them. So people use it on their pets all the time, and I love that, because there's no placebo effect with pets. It either works or it doesn't. They're not going to pretend. So I always loved that story that she told me. But also, I have a lady that was from Florida, and she was of retirement age, and she couldn't afford to retire, but she couldn't work either. And so, she used this device for about half an hour. She was sitting in the chair and just placed it on her hips, where that was her primary issue as far as pain. So she had it there for about half an hour on each side, and she stood up, and she was astounded that she could stand up without pain. And she actually was able to go back to work. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And then I have some people in Northern Europe that are really using this quite often. And there are people that are doing actual healing sessions on people. And they're even doing distance healings with the device, which is also an amazing, mysterious thing that actually is real and happens. But I have so many people that have just used it for so many different things. And I have a therapist in Los Angeles or San Diego that she uses it on her clients, and that they said they're not depressed for several days after their treatment. And she just rubs it, puts it around their head, and she said that's all I do for like 15 minutes, and then they're not depressed or sad for several days. So I thought, well, that's amazing. I love that. And so people are using it in ways that I never even considered, using it. The exciting thing about this device is it can be scaled up. This is a really good size. It could also be scaled down. We're working on that as well for like a pendant size. You just like a 2-3 inch. And in testing so far, they seem to be quite powerful as well. So we are looking into that and creating those. That's going to probably be a while, several months. But what we're currently working on is a version that you would lie down, and say you're lying on a bed. This is you. And then there'll be a series of Deems devices at your feet and a series at your head. And then they would spin and create a vortex, each one. And so you're lying within the center of this vortex. And then you receive all of that same energy in a greater dose, basically. So your body, and it's not forcing anything to happen to your body. So you're lying there in this bubble of electromagnetic, magnetic, and piezoelectric energy. And then we add in Rife frequency and scalar and some photonic energy as well. So your body is in this beautiful bubble of energy that is super supporting your body to heal itself. And that technology is not that far away. We're going to have that available. We're hoping to have it, and tests and trials beginning in early 2024. First quarter, hopefully, is what we're working on. So we're working on that now. What we would use the Deems device for, well, it was called something else, and I don't remember what it was called. But I remember using that, and we would unfortunately have to, and sometimes fortunately, to be honest, we use it to remove and erase memory. So we could find, and we already knew anybody that was in the service, in the space program. We knew the frequency of their pineal gland. Everybody's got a different frequency. Yeah, there are billions and billions of people, but there are an infinite number of frequencies. So we would know everybody's frequency, and so we could program a computer, and that computer would speak to the device that looks like the Deems, and you could create a connection. Now that connection can do a number of things. You could use it to erase blocks of memory from somebody, or you could also use it to disconnect. So the pineal gland creates this frequency, and then you bring the Deems up, well, that device up to the temple, and then you'd push a button on the back, and then the device was stronger of a signal, so it magnetically attracted that. So your soul sucked into the device, and then they would take it over. Say if you were injured and you were having to be moved into a clone, and to save your life, then they would take it to the clone. It has to be an exact DNA match, and they would put the device up against the temple. They would release the button on the back, and then it turned off that frequency, so that the pineal gland of the clone sucked it in there. So it just literally took 2 to 3 seconds to switch and just trade out your soul from one body to another. This is pretty amazing, but it's exactly the technology that they used. And so if they were going to use it for removing memory, what they could do is they can't remove specific memory. So it's like they'd have to remove a block of memory. So memory is locked into time. Okay. And what they can do is they can program a time period of your life based on your frequency, select a time period, and then delete that time period. So you'd lose everything from that time period. So if you were on a mission and terrible things happened or things that had to be remain secret happened, then they would take, after you return from the mission, they would take that block of time and remove it. And at times, I really saw it as a service. This was the work I did. I saw it as a service to a lot of people because they would come back traumatized. I mean, just horrified at things that happened. So I would feel good. And a lot of times they would be asking me, please take this memory out. I can't deal with this. And so I didn't have a choice. I did what I was told to do, obviously, in that service. But I felt as if I was really helping people, and that I was able to take those traumatic memories away, and then they would just not remember that they had them. And then sometimes it was the opposite. They didn't want us to take those memories out, but we had to do it, and so it was a very bittersweet, double-edged sword technology. And that's what I did for quite a while, in the service. And then I moved on to other locations and did other work. We could switch memories from one person to another because memory is locked into the DNA. And so the DNA that we'll carry, so when our soul leaves our body, it takes that DNA signature with it. That's why DNA is like so incredibly important throughout the universe. All entities have a DNA signature. And the individual frequency of the individual is also locked into that DNA. So then the memories are locked in, which is why when I was taken at 2 years old, and then age advanced over a few weeks to about a 25-year-old male, then they just used that same frequency and unlocked my memories of that from that DNA signature. So then I remembered everything, and I was no longer, a 2-year-old in a 25-year-old body. I was my full self with all memory, and I knew why I was there. And that same thing can happen. They can take, and I don't know how this process works. I do know that removing and unlocking memory is based on the frequency of the individual connecting to the DNA. And they can unlock or lock, blocks of memory, as well, just like erasing it. So it's always there. It's just we can't always access it. But for the most part, and it's not an invasive process. It sounds like it would be like electroshock type of stuff, but I don't ever remember any of that. I do remember it was just, you don't even feel it. It might be a slight tingle, feeling at the surface of your skin. But because it's such a subtle energy, we never felt anything as far as when they would erase or unlock memories or transfer your soul. It was not something you felt. I mean, it's just like your body had to adjust maybe to new frequencies. And so if they could copy memory, because memory are a frequency, and they can unlock it, they can actually also copy it, and so there are ways to copy memory and then transfer it into that, adjust the frequency to another person, and then move those memories over as well. So it's an amazing technology. It really is. Part of this technology, what it allows to happen is you can say if they take a child and they want to, groom them for some sort of program or something, what they can do is pull those memories out. So you take the child and you find their frequency. They usually already know what it is, but they'll find their frequency, and then they can remove those memories. Or basically what they're doing, when I say remove, what they're doing is they're changing the frequency of the memory. So it's not actually gone out of your DNA. They've changed the frequency so that you no longer remember it because it's not your frequency. And what they can do is they can take memories maybe of some other person, and I think they can actually fabricate memory, like take a video and change the frequency of it. So I'm not exactly sure how that works. But I do know that they can take the memory of another person, maybe even splice memories together, and then make them your frequency. And when they're your frequency, then they can implant them into your DNA signature. And then you would remember those things as if they were actually your experiences. The technology we use that I call the Deems now, it was used to lock and unlock memories. So if they wanted you to remember something, like when they took me and they grew my body, then they wanted me to remember that this was an agreement I'd made prior to incarnation, and that it was an agreement with my soul group. And so they unlocked all my memory, but also I needed to do telepathic work in communication later on and go through certain training and remembering. So they just unlocked all the memory. And so we pre-negotiated what memories to unlock once I was, age advanced. And then they just unlocked that set of memories. And I remembered how to be telepathic. I remembered how to do telekinesis and all sorts of fun things. But they were for a purpose, and it was part of my job. And so they were able to unlock those memories. It's the same as if once we die from this physical form and we leave this body and go back to either our soul family or our native race or wherever it is that we're designated to return. Then we go through a healing process, and then that healing process unlocks all of our memory from all of our lifetimes and all of our experience. It's very similar to that. It's just they use technology to do it artificially. I am aware, actually, of some of the additional stuff that they would do with memory, and they wouldn't just take memory away or add other memories to an individual. They could actually add information as well, because it's all, like I say, it's all about frequency. So they can take a data set, say you want to learn how to fly a jet or a spaceship, and you just basically, there's definitely technology that can do the same thing, where they can take that frequency of that information, match it to your frequency of your pineal gland, and it just sucks in there. Like suddenly I have things that came that I'm like, I suddenly knew everything about everything. It's like a memory unlock. All that information's probably already there. It's just that they know how to target and unlock it. But if it's not there, they can actually place it there as well. So suddenly you're an expert in any one subject that, is chosen. I have been asked about taking this technology that we have and using it for memory work. At this point in time, that isn't something I'm looking toward. I do know that it can be done. It can be taken, you can go to school in just a few moments and learn everything you need to learn about something. But because this particular device, because the device that we're building is mostly interacting with the physical form and the energy field of the individual body, it really can't do that, because it has to be something that is programmed to the frequency of the individual. And this device, they're all built exactly the same. So it's a broad sweeping energy that's just based on the energy of the earth itself. So it's just a basic healing energy that everybody uses, and so our particular device, can't really affect memory in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, all things can be used for good and for bad, and in the program, I am aware that they would take, say, a soldier and upload information. And that information could be a data set. It could be a technology. It could also be maybe an ability, or even a mission that they have to fulfill. And they can take that information and then place it into your mind, into your, match your frequency and put it in your brain. And then suddenly everything you need to know about becoming an assassin or becoming a pilot, and then they can actually reverse that process as well. So when you return from the mission, then that information is removed. So you have no idea that that's even what you have done, or that you no longer remember how to fly a ship. So it's just, it's a double-edged sword technology for certain, that it can be used in any way that that technology chooses. The Deems device it has really helped. I can speak for myself because there's so much more energy flowing through my body when I am in the process, and I have been for a while. But when I've been seeking to unlock old memory or reconnect those memories that have been either blocked or taken. Because there's so much more energy in my body, I feel that it really has been of assistance to me. And I am not the only one. I have other customers that have also said that just because I think because it also helps balance our body, balance our meridians and our energy centers, our chakras, then our mind can no longer, our body no longer has to be in survival mode. It can relax a bit, and then memories can also float upwards. And especially if you relax your mind, that's why I'm an advocate for meditation, because our mind is in 3 different segments. The way I like to describe it is a subconscious, our analytical mind, and then our conscious mind. In our analytical mind always thinks about how, oh, this is impossible, this can't be. So it's blocking the subconscious memory from coming forward, from floating up. And so when you go into a silent meditation, whatever that looks like for the individual, where your mind is quieted for a while, then the analytical mind quiets down. And then those old memories, the blocked subconscious memories, can float to the top, to our conscious mind, and then we'll remember them. And then having the body balanced energetically is a huge support for that system. And the Deems is excellent for balancing the energy system of the body and support that memory recovery. I have a very ethereal, spiritual belief system personally of what memories are. And I believe that that memory, like I say, the memories are locked into our DNA, and they're based in frequency, our own personal frequency. And somehow, just like zeros and ones, just like computer systems that we're aware of, use the binary system to create either data or create video or images through the 01011100 type of thing. It is also the same in our DNA. So our DNA is laid out in a way that it's a binary system for memory. So that's why the strands are so incredibly long to hold that memory system. And so it's locked within the DNA, and it's stored there. I do know and believe that, but I also believe that there's a larger system that all of our frequencies are connected to. And that larger system, some people call it the Akashic Record, some people call it the Matrix. That larger system also has the capacity to store memory as well. So that if we knew how to do this in our conscious mind, we could read other people's memories quite easily, because that information is available to all of us. That's why some people seem to know everything about you, and you have no idea why. And neither do they. The technology that I'm working on now, which is the one that you lie within, some people would refer to it as a medical bed. I tend to stay away from that term because it isn't quite the same thing. But you lie within it, and it creates this field, and then the body has the ability to use that energy field that you're within, that we've contained. And it most likely will not, say if you're missing a hand, it will most likely not have the capacity. It can't stitch together something like a new hand, because it doesn't have lasers, it doesn't have like the printing systems, it doesn't have any of that some of the other beds do, that have not yet been made available to us. But so it can't specifically do that. I mean, if the individual has the capacity to heal, themselves and manifest tissue, then the bed we're working on will absolutely support that and help them do that much more quickly and much more efficiently. But it's the individual that does the work. It's the physical body that does the work. So it's not going to create a new hand unless you have the ability to do that yourself. Then it will help you to do that. And it might unlock that ability in you. I don't know. So the whole concept for what we're building is allowing the body to heal, not forcing the body to heal or change in any way. A lot of the technology that I recall is age advancement, is cloning, taking a human body and making a copy of that and growing a copy. And that's, it's not the technology we're going to follow. And the reason being is that I have a belief that we can't really interfere with a person. We can only allow and support the person in what their ability already is. So the technology that the Deems company focuses on is using tools to remind us of how powerful that we are as individuals, that we don't need any tools to actually heal ourselves. We don't need medication. We don't need anything. We're supposed to remember that that's part of our enlightenment journey. But right now here on Earth, because we're all kind of very young still, and we're all spiritually quite young, and we're learning that we have abilities. And like, I was raised a fundamentalist Christian, and we believed in the laying on of hands, and many people were healed by doing that because they believed that was going to happen. They believed God was doing it. And in a very true way, that is the case, because we are all a fragment, a particle of God. So, but really, our physical body, we were healing ourselves. We just used the energy that, when you lay on the hands, you're sharing energy. And the Deems does the same thing. It's giving you extra energy. So prayer is wonderful because you're sending energy to somebody. And those are the technologies that support us remembering how to be the powerful beings that we are. That if we have an injury, we feel pain just so we're aware we have an injury. And then we're like, oh, okay, well, let me fix that real quick. And then we can fix it ourselves. That's where we're supposed to be. But until then, we're helping with technology that supports our system in a way that we recall our own power. And that until we can heal ourselves, the Deems company will be there, just be supportive. That's just my goal. My goal is to help people remember their own power and how to heal themselves. I was in the system for 60 years. So the first 20 years, and the reason they took me when I was 2 years old was because prior to incarnation, we had made an agreement with the United States that I was going to incarnate and be of assistance in their programs, which I did for the first 20 years. Now, after the first 20 years, you renegotiate your contract. I renegotiated my contract. I moved to the United Nations system, so I was out of the US, and then I went on and did other work for 20 years, and then renegotiated my contract once again. And then through those negotiations, we made an agreement. I was going to do another 20 years. And at the end of that 20 years, so at the end of 60 years, which I can blow your mind a little bit and say hasn't happened yet, 2030 is the end of my service. But at the end of that time, we again negotiated the last 20 years. And part of that agreement was to share this technology, was to bring this technology into the world and share it with humanity. And they were like, oh yeah, sure. That's fine. Not a problem. We'll allow that. Of course, they were all thinking that I would never remember that I was even there. So they felt like it was a sure bet. But I also negotiated like a retirement fund and stuff like that, which of course they don't give you because you forget that you agreed to do it and that they agreed to do whatever they agreed to do. But at the very end of my 60 years, I remember sitting in a room. It's a small white room rather. There was a stainless steel table that unfortunately was very much like you see in a morgue. So a stainless steel table in a small white room, like a little rollaway cart. On that cart's a computer, and sitting right next to me on the table is a device that looks like my Deems device, and it's sitting right next to me. And on that was a blue pyramidal stone that looked like a lapis lazuli or lazuli. And I remember looking down at it, and I'm like, oh no, it's my turn, because I remember doing it, for others. And I'm like, oh, and then so there's a technician walks in front of me. But prior to that, I remember walking down the hall, but he was behind me. But I was that technician for quite a few years. And then, so the technician is in front of me, and right behind me is my superior. And I can't see him, but I know he's there. So I'm like, I'm going to remember this. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, I'm going to remember this. They got, no, you're not. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, I'm going to remember this. And so he said, well, you are not going to remember this. We're going to make certain you don't remember this. And I know what that meant by having done that. That means they're going to do the erasing process at least twice just to make sure it's gone. Which has now made it kind of difficult to retrieve certain memories because it's like a double dose, right? But so I'm sitting there and I'm saying, well, I'm going to remember it, and so the technician reaches over and picks up the device and puts it up right against my temple. And I can hear him begin to click the button that's on the back. And that was all I remember. I was gone. And so I always had that memory, but I'm like, thought it was a dream and thought it was, I was told, oh, you have a big imagination, and so I believed it for many years, but later on, I'm like, no, this is real. I remember it. And so that was my exit to the program. And then I was returned to a 2-year-old clone and returned, just a few seconds after I left in 1970. I have a feeling that I was monitored while I was actually even still in the program. But as I recall, part of my contract prior to incarnation with my soul family, which were part of the benevolence that are here supporting the earth, part of my contract was that they not dig into my past too much or the future. That's because they didn't want them to fully know what I would remember. I do remember there was like some sort of negotiated block. I'm not saying that they honored it. I'm just saying that I remember that discussion, so that they would, if they want to know that you have memories, they absolutely can know. I have a feeling they did it anyway. Why wouldn't they? I mean, come on. But they can easily look down the timeline because it's technology and timelines are binary based. They're mathematically based. So if that's done, they can measure it, they can copy it, they can follow it. So yeah, I feel like they looked into my future and could see that in fact I did remember, and then in fact I did bring the Deems device. I feel like I'm sure of it. So that's why I feel confident that at least in a way that that this is part of a plan of disclosure. Is people understanding, some of the technologies and some of the technologies that have been hidden, they're not going to be hidden for much longer. They're just not. In my soul, I don't believe that's the case. And so that's why I'm working hard right now to try to bring what I can. After the 60 years contract, I know, and this is a weird thing to say, I haven't said anything weird yet today, but one more weird thing is that I know the year that I die. And that's something that I've set into motion. And that's the reason that through the timeline, I had to keep that going. Even though that when you die and you go back to wherever you're slated to return, you're outside of time, the Earth timeline and basic timeline, really. you can step back in it, obviously, by being reincarnated. But we try to lay things out in a way to help support us in our memory recovery, and then our, bringing those things back to us while we're incarnate. So we try to keep things linear through the timeline, say Earth, because we're on Earth. So we try to keep things linear. So I didn't stay beyond 60 years that I recall. Maybe I did, but because I know the year that I die, it's less than 20 years after 2030. So it wouldn't work timeline wise. So I chose to stay 60 years to keep that linear timeline.
Well, don't you think med beds are going to change all that? They can reanimate the dead, right? Oh wait, I guess you didn't have to go into that.
Yeah. I don't remember working with that technology. Mine was just the technology that could bring somebody back or rebuild a body. Those technologies, the best I recall of them is that they're so much more expensive that they were reserved even off planet for certain individuals. Often the actual soldiers that were going out doing certain missions, they would come back highly injured, and so they had to repair them. Well, with somebody like myself, they just kept copies of my body. So if I had an injury, which I was actually killed at one point in time. And then my memories, my soul, everything was transferred over. If they do it within like 2 hours, they can easily grab your frequency and your memory. So if you're dead within the 2-hour time period, they can pull that memory out. And they can actually store that memory for up to like 2 weeks. And then it begins to degrade, and then you'll just return back to wherever, as if you've died of what you did. So if they can get you in a body within 2 weeks, then you normally would continue on forward and as if nothing happened. And it's not easy to integrate into a new body. It's like flu-like symptoms for a couple of weeks, or rather a couple of days. And like, you're very jittery and nervous, and it's because your nervous system is adjusting to the new, the consciousness that's flowing through it. Well, they negotiate a lot of things, when they're very generous when they know you're not going to remember, unfortunately, and with me, I remember negotiating like a $3 million retirement, which is not that much money considering what, 60 years of work. But I'm like, because I wasn't really like money motivated, but I definitely wanted something. So I'm hoping in 2030, my bank account just gets another extra $3 million, which would be like $3 million bank account. So, but I think for the most part, it's unfortunate that they've made a lot of contracts with I'm sure thousands and thousands of soldiers and people and individuals. And I think that money's got to be somewhere. I mean, money doesn't really exist anyway. It's just a construct that we've created. But I'm hoping, that someday they will honor what, as people recover memories. I believe more and more people are, and there's going to be a shift where they're going to have to step up at some point, is what I believe. And I hope that does happen, and people get what they were promised and what they earned. I don't think the reason that they're not paying is based on the money, because money, it's not that difficult to find a way to get money. There's so many trillions of dollars out there that the money they promised every single person in the space program or any program isn't that much compared to it. I don't think it's that. I think it's if they paid us, then they would have to own up to everything else as well, because they're saying that it's a legitimate thing and that this was an agreement. And it's not that they're not going to do that. I just think they don't know how to do that yet. They don't know how to release all that information in a way that isn't going to be difficult for the public to manage. I definitely believe it's possible to use time travel technology, because it's all these technologies are linked, and once you have one, you can have all of them for the most part. So they could easily go back, if you died weeks, months, years, many years, and recover somebody in time. I don't know what that would affect for the individual. And so it may or may not work on the individual, lapping that much, time. Like, say, if we wanted to go back to Italy and get Leonardo da Vinci and bring him through, I don't know how, if it's a stabilized set of memories, and if the soul would be stabilized, because also we have to remember that soul is a living entity and connected to other living entities, and so how that works, I'm not sure how that would work. When I was a child, especially after, obviously I left at 2, and when I came back, I never didn't have many memories. So it definitely, I had these memories of being an adult, of working with adults, of being in space, of doing all of these things. And I'm like, I just thought it was normal. Like, everybody felt that way, but it was difficult because within those memories, I remember technology. I remembered quantum physics. I remembered so many things as like a 4 or 5-year-old kid, and I didn't know how I remembered it, but I just knew I remembered these high scientific things, and then I would try to talk to people about it, and they just kind of look at me really funny and think I was crazy. I'm like, so I stopped talking about it. So I was definitely, and I still am, the odd one out, and but I've come to love that and appreciate it. So that's, at least I've gotten to that place in life. When I was in that service, and I don't believe it was when I was working for the United States specifically, I actually did travel forward in the timeline. I don't remember what the reason was, and I did see Earth, and I saw it. I'm thinking it was around 2075-ish, sometime within that time period. And it was an amazing place. It was the utopia that you see, in sci-fi movies, that these beautiful gleaming cities and technology and like the Earth was much more green, and pollution was pretty much gone. And, it was like utterly ideal Earth, which is a full 4th density Earth. But I remember that. And I remember being in a big tall building at some large downtown area, and just seeing all the parks and all the people. And, so Earth in less than 100 years is going to be an amazing place, and right now we're in this transitional phase that is kind of difficult, and we're seeing a lot of really bad things happen here and there. But it's part of shining light in the darkness, and we just have to maintain the faith and work together and stay together and just go for the ride. The memories I've always maintained were all memories based on the work I was doing, either with the United States, and that was doing memory transference, memory and soul transference to a new clone system, regeneration, not much of that, but then for the most part, I do remember being on Earth. I remember it was in a desert area, and I remember walking on gravel and walking a young man that had become very ill. So I have memories like that, but I don't believe I was ever in a combat situation. So my experience was very different than many of the soldiers, and because the work I did later on was more ambassadorial, and I know that I was targeted a lot. I was in stasis literally more than I was not, because of the information, and because I was telepathic. I could be infringed upon if there was, say I was traveling from the Earth to Saturn. If I was not protected in a Faraday cage or in stasis, which was also a Faraday cage, that type of situation, if I wasn't, and I was just wandering around the ship, conscious and thinking, and another ship, let's say a negative race came by, they have technology, they can scan the ship and see on that ship who's telepathic. And if they connect with somebody telepathically, they can extract your memory. And so I was in stasis, especially when we traveled. So I wasn't exposed to a lot of what other people were exposed to, simply because I was in cold storage quite a lot. Well, I believe morally, anybody that's been in the program, even if they were a slave, they should be compensated, and even if at the very least that compensation is, to acknowledge their experience so that they can embrace it at the very least, but I don't care who you are. If you're in the system, especially if you were taken, against your will or with an agreement, you should be absolutely compensated. I remember very vividly being on a ship up in I don't know how far off the surface of the Earth, but I was on a ship and the Earth was there. It was just this huge window, right? It may have been a monitor, but I think if this one was a window, because there's not that many windows in space. This was not even an American or an Earth vessel. It was another vessel. And I looked down at the Earth. I could see it. It was a big, giant sphere. And it was huge. I could easily see it. I was looking down at the United States and Canada and all the way over to the Atlantic. And we're just looking at it because I was trying to determine where I was going to incarnate. And so that was part of my decision, was we were just standing there looking at the planet, which was a great big sphere. I promise you, it's a sphere. Even, scientifically, if you know how things work in space, they gather together, and they gather together in the easiest form. The easiest form is spherical. That's why bubbles are round. So yeah, Earth is a sphere. I truly believe in my heart that Earth isn't not like a hollow. It's more of a honeycomb. But I don't have specific memory of going through. The one thing I would like to just say to people in general is, don't give up. Maintain hope and know that things, I promise you, will work out in a beautiful, positive way. It may not be the most fun, journey to get there, but don't remain alone. Seek out people and share, and don't be afraid to speak out, and feel. Let people send you love. Let people be there for you, and you be there for others, because that is what's going to break the cycle, is if we can come together and accept one another, whether we believe them or not. I don't say what I say to be believed. It's okay if you don't believe. I'm going to be me after that anyway. But I say what I say to be heard, because then people's minds will begin to open up. And that's really, I think, the one thing. If we can just accept one another, in a way that we don't judge one another, so that we're comfortable being who we are and coming together, that I think that's the key to the future for all of humanity. Yeah.
Please consider supporting Super Soldier Talk by purchasing your own Neo Meditation device. Your Neo Meditation device will help you reduce stress, integrate trauma, enhance intuition, enhance clairvoyance, and enhance creativity. Get yours now at www.neologicaltech.com.